Peace and blessings, and welcome to another edition of the How Now podcast, where we talk about how to live in the now. I am your host, Kim Martin Raymond. I am a minister, spiritual life coach, author, and founder of Redefining You LLC, where I help my clients to realign themselves, mind, body, and spirit. This is June 2021, and it is Pride Month. And so we want to talk about pride and the strides that have been made during this Pride Month. Okay, first we want to talk a little bit about how the history of the Pride celebration started. It started back in 1994 by Rodney Wilson. He was a high school teacher in Missouri, and he came out publicly and founded the LGBT History Month. That's what it was called initially back in October. And it focused on providing role models and building community and representing civil rights and contributions of the LGBTQ community. But we know that in June 1st of this year, Joe Biden signed a proclamation proclaiming June as the LGBTQ plus Pride Month. And he said, and I quote, recognizing the achievements of the LGBTQ plus community to celebrate the great diversity of the American people and to wave their flags of pride high. So I'm excited to be able to celebrate with my special guests, to talk about pride and strides that we have seen in pride. So before we jump in, as is customary with the How Now podcast, I'm going to have my guests to introduce themselves.
Okay, so hello everyone. I am Larnika Lavlis, aka Linky Love. I am a licensed professional counselor supervisor. I work in public school as a mental health counselor. I do an online program, and I have my own private practice.
Awesome. And you're coming to us live from the state of Texas, correct?
State of Texas, yes, and all of this heat.
Hey, Texas.
All right. All right, Ronaldo.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ronaldo Thompson. I work for International Franchise Support Center in the greater area of Atlanta in the child care industry. You can call me Rennie, Ronaldo, anything.
Call him Fly for those of y'all who see that jacket, okay? I'm feeling
I know that jacket.
I need it to go with my top. It matches. We match. Okay, Rick.
I am Rick Ludell. I am the on-air promotions and traffic manager at ATL PBA, the local PBS station here in town. I'm also one of the on-air anchor talents that's there too. I'm the one who's always asking for money. And when you guys see me, you're always pushing the fast forward button going, oh, not him again. And this is my husband, Rick.
I'm the other Rick. I work in retail, which has been kind of challenging lately.
Yeah.
I've been walking dogs for some friends. We do a lot of pet sitting. So that's about it.
He's just Rick. That's the House of Ricks, okay?
That's the house of, and we have been together 26 years.
26 years. You just recently celebrated an anniversary, didn't you?
Yes, in May. We call the cohabitation anniversary.
Oh,
May 20th.
May 20th is when I moved down here to move in with a 26 years ago.
I know.
Wow, 26
full head of my hair.
Well, that's okay. He's got some hair on his head, so y'all can
show. He never had hair. He never had hair.
Well, guys, welcome. I am so thrilled to have all of you here joining me today to talk about Pride Month. I it would be remiss of me not to, have an episode to talk about the strides, the things that we've been seeing, because the social climate and the political climate has been as such with gender and race issues. We've had so many things that we were going to prior to this pandemic, which stopped the world for a little while. And I want to talk a little bit about that first. What was going on for you all, during right prior to the pandemic, because we were going through an election season. We were going, through the transfer of a new administration. And so there was some social and political issues that were going on in the LGBTQ community. So to talk a little bit about what that experience was for you personally. And we can start with anyone.
Okay, well, for me personally, I advocate for mental health. So during this time, I know maybe a little bit before we had the bathroom bill, there was some issues with the trans community. I know the military, whether they were going to be allowed in the military or if they were going to pay for any hormonal treatments or something, that was one of the hot topics that was going on, along with like just so much. I can't even
Right.
remember. But it was a lot of stuff, but everything seemed to be rolled into one. And it seems that we were coming together for all of it, whether it was an immigration issue, whether it was an LGBT issue, Black Lives Matter, that was still going on before
Right.
it blew up with George Floyd. That, you know,
Right.
we had some folks that were killed prior to that particular incident that people were just like, let's march for all of it. Let's just do it.
Right.
And for me, through mental health, my aim was to empower queer trans people of color. I have a support group that's called Queer Trans People of Color, Cutie Park, Southeast Texas, where it helps to empower individuals where they are. You know, I grew up in a small town, south of Port Arthur, Texas, and a lot of people would leave that area and go to Houston where they can get lost and they can maybe do more without having to deal with any backlash, you know. So my work was trying to get people to be empowered where they were. You don't have to leave to go to the big city to feel like you have a voice. You can have a voice right where you are.
Right. That's phenomenal. And then did you happen to have any of your clients who were you know, of the LGBTQ community that you were working with prior to the pandemic, or have you seen a little bit of a surgence in any of your clients? You know, because I know you said you work in the schools, and we know that young people are experiencing these things as well.
Yes, definitely. It seems that when the pandemic hit, and I guess as these political, I think right when the Black Lives Matter, that whole movement during the summer, it seems like here comes the clientele. Like everyone is like the LGBT community was like, hey, that's you. Here we come. You know, I'm like, come on, I got you. Come on, let's make this happen. I totally understand. There's a lot of stress and a lot of mental anguish with viewing the death over and over and over again. People whose friends may have been of different cultural identities, to see how they really felt about them on social media when folks would say like, hey, this is horrible. And then you would get some negative rebuttal that's like, oh goodness, okay. That's how you really feel about me.
Right. So I can imagine. I mean, like you said, that's been the situation. Like I said, there's been so much of a push, especially for diversity, equity, and inclusion. Those have been the buzzwords of the day, you know, when you start talking about things like that. But I want to also hear from Rick and Ronaldo. Ronaldo, what were some of the things that you were experiencing, or things that were going on for you personally during that time?
I would say that part of the pandemic, I felt alone. I have family that live in South Carolina, so I'm in the Atlanta area by myself. So just not being able to do the day-to-day things that I like to do with everything being shut down due to the stay-at-home order or businesses closing. I feel like I learned myself more, like how I feel, what makes me happy, how can I survive on my own. I'm not a chef. I don't know how to cook. Just that everyday thing, not being able to go out, was kind of really hard for me. So I started to learn self-care. And what makes me happy. So I didn't have any of those resources to reach out to like talk to anyone besides like family. And that was kind of like how we started this Zoom thing of seeing each other.
Yeah. I can imagine. Just like you said, it's hard to be in a city and to move from a small town and to go into a bigger city. Just like you said, not have the support, and then, you know, to feel alone and then to have everything shut down, and you're just like, oh, what do I do? You know, and who can I tap into? So I think that you know, were there any support groups or anyone that you tried to reach out to during that time?
I would say that the support person that I have is actually someone I'm talking to now, and we're dating.
Oh, okay.
I started a COVID relationship.
Nice. And I mean, that's what happens. You just try to find people I think we're always looking for people to connect with and to find those similarities that we have and using that to to help to navigate us through any situation that we have. So just like you said, I know there's been a lot of COVID relationships that have started, but I know that as Lanika was saying as well, there are a lot of groups that have arisen out of this because people are looking for people. They're looking for that support. They're looking to figure out what to do when they don't know what to do themselves. So, that's definitely important. Okay, Rix, what about you guys?
No. Okay.
No, you go.
For me, nothing ever really changed. I mean, I became an essential employee. I was at work all the time. The week before the pandemic shut the world down,
Right.
they let go of, they were restructuring my company, and I was lucky that I got a job, still had a job.
Mhm.
So all of a sudden they let my assistant go, and all of a sudden my hours went from 40 hours a week up to about 70 hours a week.
Wow.
So I felt like I missed the whole pandemic getting to hang out with Rick while he was home,
Right.
but I had to keep the TV station on the air.
Right.
And that was one of the things, was to keep this going. And I became customer service. I was talking to people on the other end of the line. If something came up that, oh, why are we airing this show? Because, it's self-help. Why we don't need to be told what to do to make ourselves healthy.
Right.
And then I would say, well, let's keep talking. I would be hearing the anguish in these people's voices. And Larnika, you probably understand it really well, because you're sitting there, you're the voice at the other end of the phone. And all of a sudden what should be a 5-minute conversation became 15, 20, 30 minutes, just so you're a different voice at the end of the phone. And trust me, I got into some political conversations that I'm on one side, they were on the other side, but they wanted to air their views because PBS, as we know, leans to the left a little bit.
Right.
Why are we leaning that way? I said, because we have to show the truth.
Right.
And that's where, because of the disgraced ex-president,
Right.
people didn't believe that they believed he was telling the truth. And I'm like, no, but I said, we always ended that conversation with the people that were on the opposite side. Let's agree to disagree.
Right.
And let's keep going forward. And please become a sustaining member.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
But I feel like I missed the pandemic. I missed everything because I was at work the whole time.
Right.
And believe me, for everybody out there, I am not upset that I had a job. I am very lucky, and I'm very blessed that I kept working, because my sense of normalcy was, I got up,
Right.
I went to work, we shut the doors to everybody. So any interviews and everything were done through Zoom or done through an ISDN line.
Right.
My friend Rose Scott, who does her show Closer Look, a lot of it was just, pre-recorded, just
Right.
kind of like doing like a podcast, but it still went on the air. So business as usual just kept going on.
Right.
Even though this world was falling apart, even though we had an administration that didn't respect the LGBTQ community,
Right.
we kept plugging forward.
Right.
So
What I think is, go ahead, Rick. I'm sorry.
no, I'm just like, but for him, it's like I missed my time being at home. I would leave
Right.
at like 10:30 or 11 and get home at 11 o'clock at night. Maybe we'd watch Will and Grace on Cozy.
We'd have maybe an hour or two of the evening to eat late, and
Right.
then he'd fall asleep on the couch.
Right.
This is it.
But we'd be next to each other for a couple of hours.
Right. Right. But and I love that you all are talking about the experiences that you have, because just like Rick was saying, you all are essential workers. You all still had things to do. You all still had roles to play in your various professions that were important and that were critical, and that helped to bridge the gap. And when I think about the sensitivity issues that we've been having with gender and race, you all are blessed to be in organizations that respect you and your choices and your lifestyles. And we saw, of course, during the course of this pandemic, and with all of the things that have been going on, that not everybody has been making the choices of, a lot of people having to cut employment, in half and downsizing, and people who are, moving their businesses and what have you overseas. We've seen a lot of people have to be cut, and we've seen that some people have been cut for their beliefs, for their race, for their gender, and that's been something that's been so sensitive. And I've noticed, of course, now, like I said a little earlier, the buzzwords have been DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion. Those are the buzzwords of the day. Everyone is saying them now. Everybody's trying to seek training. Everyone's trying to seek sensitivity training, because honestly, and this is just my opinion, I have never experienced such a lack of empathy across the board for people and their feelings towards this pandemic, towards other races, towards other genders. I have never experienced it at the heightened level that it's been at, during this pandemic time. And I think that's huge.
Filters are off.
Just a lack of respect for other people.
Yes.
I mean, the whole mask issue.
Yes.
I just felt that you wear a mask to protect yourself and also to protect other people.
That's right.
And why is that such a hard concept that people
That's right.
don't want to protect themselves and other people?
Right.
I had a really hard time with that because I worked retail.
Mhm.
So I was out in the public. I mean, we shut down for a couple of months when it first started.
Right.
And of course, he started working more. I was home all the time
Right.
for a couple of months. And then I went back to work for 4 months. And then unfortunately, Pier 1 closed for good.
Right.
So the pandemic shut down our company.
Right.
But while I was working last summer, it was a challenge being out in the public all the time and dealing with the public.
Right.
And, being a little bit worried about it because he was in the office where he wasn't really connected with anybody.
Right.
And I was out with the public all the time.
Right.
But I mean, it worked out. It worked out. And we again have our hour or two at the end of the day together,
Right.
and then Sundays together. Because he would usually take Sunday off. That was his lazy day. And we would just lay in bed, watch Golden Girls, just be lazy and spend time together. But our experiences were so different because he started working more and he was more essential.
Right.
And I ended up, like I said, for 2 months not working at all.
Yeah.
And then I was working part-time until the company shut down totally.
Yeah.
So
it has been a challenge. It has been such a challenge to try to make that transition for a lot of us. And just like you said, those who had really social positions that required them to be in contact with several people during the course of the day, all of a sudden to not have that, I'm sure was just, that's like me, I'm a hugger and you can't hug anybody. It's just like, wow, I was like, just lay me down because I need to touch people. I need to touch, and I can't, So yeah, it's a challenge. I was gonna say, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry, Kim. One of the things I miss is because of Kaiser being shut down or not having the classes, is I think for us having those open, honest conversations, we would have been talking about George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Rayshard Brooks. We would have had those conversations of how you guys are feeling and educating me and everybody else of not a person of color of talking about this. Because that's one of the things I've missed so much is the open and honest conversations that we have in class and after class.
That's right. That's right. And I miss those things too. I mean, just like you said, it's important for us to be able to have that open space, to have platforms like this, to have those conversations, because when we're left to our own devices, if we're not educating ourselves and we're not taking time to better understand the things that are going on around us, then we start developing our own thoughts, and sometimes they may not be necessarily as accurate as they should be.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. I'm sorry, Ronaldo.
And just to be educating each other, when you're speaking, like you say, a lifestyle, I think that's something that makes the LGBTQ community frowned upon, because when we are labeled as being gay as a lifestyle, it's kind of like it's a choice. I feel like it's not a choice, it's who we are as people.
Right.
So I just wanted to educate everyone who's listening to this, like, it's not a lifestyle. We didn't wake up to say, oh, I want to be gay today. I feel like when people do lifestyles, like, oh, I'm going to be a fitness trainer, or I'm going to be a stylist, or I'm just going to be flashy every day. That's the lifestyle. This is who I am as a person.
Right, right. I love that. I love that. And that I am so glad that you brought that up, because that's exactly what I'm talking about. We don't always know the right term. Everybody's so worried about being politically correct. Then you have people who just, we use terms because we don't know other terms to use, but just like you're saying, it's not a lifestyle. It's who you are.
Yeah.
And you're right. It's not something that you put on and take off at the end of the day. That's who you are. And so I appreciate you saying that. I know, Linky, you had something else that you wanted to say. I don't want to leave anyone else out, but yes, that's right. We don't clap for you. We clapping for you. Thank you. Rick was like, yay. Okay, Linky.
I was just saying it seemed like all the filters were gone when people were saying such politically incorrect things about any genre, any group of people. It looked like it just all came out. And part of that could be because the sense of normalcy that we had was gone. People had no control over anything. Unfortunately, people were passing away left and right, and I think it may have given people a sense of doomsday. All right, if I'm gonna die, I'm gonna say what's been on my mind all this time.
Right.
And it was some horrible stuff, to really see humanity. You had one group that was helpful, that was always helping. How can we donate? What can we do to help people? How can we get information through to people about resources or whatever that may be available. To we just don't care. We don't care who you are, what you are. We ain't wearing masks. We feel like slaves. I'm like, really?
Right.
Masks? Okay. It was just the ugly side of humanity, period.
Yeah. I 100% agree. Like I said, I've just never seen things so, like I said, that lack of empathy. And that's been something that's hard to digest, because we can't understand and we can't move forward if we're so close-minded about things. You know what I'm saying? I just want to make sure. Did you have something you wanted to say? I just wanted to make sure. I thought he.
I should be the.
Okay.
And I know there's many levels to that.
Oh yes.
I've been schooled by the girls at work.
Yes. But just like you said, it's been hard to try to focus in on what's the best course of action, and when we talk about the LGBTQ community, and we're talking about, yes, we're celebrating a month, we can liken it to Black History Month. It's just 1 month we're going to talk about this, because there's only 1 month that we want to celebrate this. We are happy for bringing awareness, but is that enough? Is it just enough to say 1 month is a month that we want to celebrate? Or is it, something that we should be, incorporating into our lives on a daily basis? Do we want our children to be raised and not, and to be short-sighted on the things that are going on around them?
Here's one thing that our programmers once said, and this resonated so well. When we came up to Black History Month, I think it was like 2001 or 2002, our programmers said, yes, it's Black History Month, but every month should be Black History Month. She goes, every month should be Jewish History Month. Every month should be Native American, Asia Pacific, LGBTQ. We should be programming that. Everybody should be educating all throughout the year.
That's right.
Not just one day.
Right.
And I think it's Henry Louis Gates, he does a lot of stuff, Finding Your Roots, African Americans, Many Rivers to Cross. He does a lot of great Black history programming.
Right.
And he always said the same thing, that every day should be Black History Education Day.
Right.
That because there's so much history for y'all that has not been told, like the Tulsa massacre.
Right.
Thanks to Regina King from Watchmen to doing that, I never knew about that.
Right.
And all of a sudden in the past year, that has brought a lot to light.
Right.
I mean, it wasn't taught in schools. I'm 59 now. I never heard about that in any of the history books at all.
Right.
And talk about history, any gay history too.
And I was going to
LGBTQ history.
Me going to Parkland and getting my master's in educational leadership, I always think about like what the generation after me will be taught in schools. I'm pretty sure they're going to teach about the pandemic, the election. But do anyone think that in the history book they're going to talk about the massacre at the Club Pulse that happened 5 years ago? Like, I feel like that's something that I would want my children to learn about, but I'm not sure that will be in the history book. When you talk to your friend or colleagues, do they even know about that?
Right. I did. I don't know. I'm today years old on that.
I would say it's a negative, because if they're trying to rewrite the history of slavery to make it seem like that we were indentured servants, I can guarantee you they won't talk about Pulse. It's a shame they need to, but if you're wanting to make America look like we didn't have blemishes and bad stuff that happened, then are they gonna talk about the pandemic? Really? If you look at it, they wanted to make it seem like we're just squeaky clean. We just did everything right, and everything's wonderful.
And I think
that wasn't it.
When we're doing this podcast, because Club Pulse was a place of like joy and acceptance. So when you think about like now, it's like unspeakable pain. So when we're living day to day, it's kind of like when we speak about stuff, will it be to joy or will it hurt others from our conversation?
Right. And that's something that's important. And then just like even when you talk about statues being erected, where some people is their history, and if other people it's a reminder of the pain that they suffered. Are we honoring that, or are we honoring the individual in history? And there are so many, ways that the information that is put out there is received, and it's who is presenting that information, and is it going to be presented in a way that is going to be neutral, and that it's not showing, it's not leaning to the left or to the right, like Rick was saying, in certain broadcasts and things like that. You never know what direction it's coming from. So you want to make sure that when the information is being shared, or when we have platforms like this, that we're giving a perspective that's not skewed, and that is being told by the people who experienced it. Because I think that's the huge thing. If you're a person who has just been, you observed it, you have a certain bias. If you're a person who has experienced it and has lived through it and understands the consequence of it, then you're in a better position to express that information. So that's something that I think that my prayer is that platforms like this will do. It will bring knowledge to people, or will bring people, an understanding of what it is that someone has to go through on a day-to-day basis. So we're talking about, how it is affecting you all now. Now that they've done this proclamation, now that they're talking about doing things like diversity and equity and inclusion, and they're talking about, how it's affecting people, where do we go from here? That's the question for me. Where do we go from here? What is it going to look like in the future?
We continue to tell our story. That's one thing about, as is with Black History Month, the same with Pride Month, we continue to talk about our history. We continue to make history. We continue to empower others. My group and the advocacy work that I've done in the community was not just geared towards June. This is a continuum. We have programs and things. Now, COVID kind of messes up a little bit, and many people went to a virtual platform, right, which I think actually wasn't bad, because we did get a chance to reach a lot of people. People were at home, kind of stuck in the pandemic, unable to go out. So we put some stuff out there, participating with some things that Pride of Houston did. Cutie Pop Houston put some things together where I didn't know how. I participated with them, and they were like, HRC had some stuff. There was a lot of grassroots LGBTQ advocates that you probably won't hear about, that's doing phenomenal work where it comes to HIV, homelessness, with children, just families, just many, many different things out there. What should happen is that mainstream kind of peep in and see, hey, what are we doing, as opposed to peeping in and wanting to bash us. We're actually doing great work. Yeah, we party, we celebrate, we have a great time. But trust me, on the other side of that, we're doing a lot of work in the community. We work hard. we work diligently. You know, we don't get any pats on the back. If we get some grant money to help us, fine. But most of the time, it's us raising our own monies, doing whatever we need to do to help each other in our community.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was going to say, I know because Ronaldo and I have instances to work with one another. We see some strides just in how our families are addressed. You know, we used to talk about parents as a mom and a dad, and we would you know, that's what our all of our any of our activities, they tend to lean towards parents. Now we have a family communication board, and we know that there are differences in how parents, I mean, how guardians or parents or families look. And so they've kind of gotten moved away from that terminology and talk about families and talk about how they look different. And that's something that's significant. And it's something that we need to continue to push, because families don't look the same anymore. And we want our children, as in, you know, we work in preschool, you know, and so, you know, trying to bring those activities, try to bring those you know, instances to our families to let them know that we understand that there are differences, and we want our children to embrace them and not to look at them as something different, you know, from their own families. It's a family, it's a unit. The family consists of different people, and you know, we want to make sure that we're doing that as well. Correct, Ronaldo?
Correct.
Yeah.
I would say, when you ask like where we go here from now, I do think we're evolving, or we're going in the right direction. During the pandemic, I came addicted to this show on Netflix called Pose. It now went on Fox, and I feel like they taught me so much more that I did not know about the community or the lifestyle in the 80s or the 90s. That I feel like if I just had someone that was older than me to kind of like mentor or coach, or just tell me how it was or what I'm privileged to, because I feel like now we're very privileged compared to what everyone experienced back in the day.
Right. Because definitely 1994, when they were doing LGBTQ month, I'm sure was different from 2021.
Correct.
You know, and I mean, I'm sure, Rick, you all are, you know, you're our veterans here. You're older.
We're old.
But no,
we old.
But you look damn good. Okay, let's go there. Okay. Yeah,
Mama said moisturize. Mama said moisturize.
But yes, but you had instance to see significant changes, or see how things have evolved, correct?
I think one of the things is the fact of adopting or having children, because our generation, I think guys that are 55 or above, the thought of having a child was never entered into the vocabulary. Because we were deemed deviants and that, you know, not good for raising children. When you look at half the people out there that are having kids and beating the crud out of them. And I think that's one of the things, like Rick's sister sometimes said, I just wanted to be an aunt or an auntie. So,
well, she just said to me one time, she goes, I always thought you'd be a good dad. You could still be a dad. And this was when we were like 48. I'm like, I don't know, we're getting a little bit old for that. But when we met at 32, we didn't think it was an option.
That was 1994.
So mentally, we never thought of that as an option. So we lived our lives as
normal, the typical gay men.
Unencumbered, you know, no children, living our lives for ourselves. And some people think that's selfish, but back then we didn't think we had that. I mean, I don't know that we would have adopted a child, but it just wasn't an option for us. Now things are a lot different. And, you know.
And piggybacking on what he's saying, I went up Memorial Day weekend. I went to a friend's home in North Carolina. They had fostered a child and then adopted Leland. So when they got Leland, he was about 18 months, and now Leland's 8 years old. And they have a swimming pool, and they decided to have a pool party. On Sunday was 3 other couples with their just male couples and their sons. And it was just amazing that one of the dads said, they don't have to explain to anybody else where mommy is, that they know that it's just dad and dad. And it was the love that these guys had for their sons and for each other's. It's like these boys are growing up to almost to be cousins.
Yeah.
And it's just like, you know, I had to step away and have like a good cry, because it's like how far we've come.
That's
The
right.
fact that this, and I know there's lesbian couples that have the same thing, that's doing the same thing, that the kids don't have to ask where daddy is, that all they know is it's mommy and mommy.
That's right.
This is their normal. This is their normalcy.
That's right.
And I think that's how far, I think that's what we've come for.
Right.
And then I think Larnika's talking about, I think it's with the trans community now, is for all those of us that aren't trans to understand their mindset, to understand where they're coming from, to be more sympathetic to them and not look at them as like, oh yeah, you don't have that. You're not like us. So where are you standing?
Right.
So I think thanks to the show Pose,
right,
it's put so much out there that we can start understanding, start having those conversations. But
well, I was going to say, since we've been together, even within the LGBTQ plus community, did I say that right?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's changed so much since we were first together.
Right.
I mean, when we were first together back in the 90s, you didn't really hear about trans and different pronouns and things of how people refer to themselves. And within our community, we don't all understand each other. And we just have to be open to it, like we want the rest of the world to be open to us.
Right.
Well, we have to be open to the trans and the other factions that are coming out and being, becoming more open and
celebratory.
There's just so many different facets of the gay community. It's
right. I was going to say, you make an excellent point, because that's true. Everybody just makes the assumption that, it's the LGBTQ community and everybody understands everything about that community. And just like, I don't know what that means either. Some people don't know all the acronyms. And they're like, I don't even know myself. But there again goes some of the ignorance that comes along. We just make the assumption that, all Black people know about all Black people. Do we?
Yeah.
Of course not. So all people that fall under the LGBTQ community don't know everything about themselves. And like we're sitting there like, oh, you don't know about that? Well, what kind of person are you? I mean, nobody's pulling my Black card because I don't know everything about every Black person under the sun. You know what I'm saying? So your card's not going to get pulled. You know what I'm saying? People. It's about education. It's about exposure. It's about, like you said, creating spaces where these questions can be answered and no one is shunned. And because we're seeing it, occurring younger and younger, and I know Linky can probably speak to this as well. Yeah. That we have young people that are experiencing, these they're being shunned.
The differences
for being different. Or for being told that, oh, well, you're too young to understand. There are just so many things that come along with that. So there is, just not only the social and the and political, but also the emotional aspects, that come along with this.
And definitely I've been working in education for about 12 years. And I've seen a lot of advances, and I've seen some of those advances bring up a lot of ugliness. Mm-hmm. Now kids who are trans or even non-binary, mm-hmm. they're able to have a voice, be visible, because before they had to hide who they were and everything. And now the subject comes up in school where, well, I go by a different name, I have different pronouns. Could you please call me by these pronouns or call me by that name? Right. Now, when I was in school, if a boy name was William, you called him Bill, and that was fine. No one had a problem with it. Right. William is Bill. But if you have a girl named Josephine and she wants to be called Joseph, well, then that becomes an issue. And then do we call the mom in and let's see what they're talking about? Or, but I can say the district where I work at now and the campus that I work on now, since school has been prolonged a little bit because we started late, we have a GSA and we celebrated Pride Week. We at least had a week. They allowed us a week to celebrate Pride. That was before finals. And it was great. Staff, students, allies, everyone was able to come out and just support questions answered. If anyone, had anything, I guess I'm the queer encyclopedia to some people on my campus. I'm like, I know everything about everybody, but it's been great. But I can say that when you think of children who are transitioning or identify as trans or non-binary, or they're too young to understand, and how can they be too young to understand? They know who they are. I was about 5 when I knew something was going on with me. And I tried to come out to my mom at 11 when I saw the women of Brewster's Place. That's how old I am. I might need to look a little older. We didn't have any
Don't tell your age.
we didn't have much representation on
Right.
TV. We definitely didn't have social media.
Right.
So
No.
when I saw that lesbian couple, I'm like, oh, I'm 11 years old. I'm like, that's me. So if I can identify and tell who I am at that age, why can't kids at that age be able to know, like, something's going on here?
Yeah.
What I've been assigned is not assigned as is not who I am.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's huge. Just like you said, that's huge. That education, that moving us to a space of understanding and growth out of a space of fear. Because I know a lot of people, it's been a fear of being admonished, a fear of not being treated like our peers because we're different, or because we have a different frame of mind. That's something that, until we can get past that, we're going to continue to be in this vacuum of just pointing at, or putting down people who are different from who we are, and not embracing the power of what they bring to their community, what they bring to their jobs. You talk about the roles that you have. Rick, you say you're vital. You are a vital, essential part of your job. This is your career. This is what you're good at. And it's a blessing that people don't take that for granted, that they value it, but that there are certain organizations that still do. And they miss out on the power. They miss out on what you all bring to your various organizations. Could they have done it without you? Maybe, but they didn't have to. They didn't have to, they didn't have to make that choice and say, well, because, Rick is gay, we're just not going to have him be at our job because we don't support that. They look at your ability and they look at your value and they value that. And that's what we all want. We just want to be able to be valued for what we bring to the table. Ronaldo is wonderful at what he does. He is a dynamo. I am blessed to work with him. He's an awesome guy. He knows his stuff. But we would never want to sit there and say, oh, well, because he's gay, no, sorry, he can't come, he can't be here. It's about saying, okay, not to say who we are, what can we bring? What can we do? How can we reach back and help to support people? How do we move people from a space of fear to a space of understanding so that they can get to a space of growth so that they can reach back and bring other people? That's what we want to be able to do. That's what we want the focus to be on. We want the focus to be on what can we bring to the table. You didn't go to school to be, discounted because of the fact that you're gay or lesbian. Nobody looks at that. What do you bring? What can you do to help to support? What can you do to help to encourage? What can you do to help to inspire others? I think we're blessed in that social media has come along, and it has also given its own level of exposure, just like you said, shows like Pose and people finally receiving accolades for their abilities to act and to do things like that.
Yeah.
That's truly been the blessing when we can look beyond that and see what it is that we bring. What do we bring to our culture? What do we bring to our existence? And that's something that I think is going to be key as we move forward. Okay. Now, one thing that I did want to chit chat about, because we have we have our singles here. We have our married, but we have our singles here as well. Yeah. How has the dating scene been for you guys? Have mercy. Jump in, either one of you.
It's been rough.
Well, it sounds like Ronaldo has a boo.
Yeah,
I think
That's
I'm
right.
doing
Ronaldo
this.
has. That's right. He did.
it started
Ronaldo
off.
has a boo, so that puts me out there. Yes, I'm single.
I feel like when we were in just like a pandemic, it was like any conversation you was able to get from anyone would continue. It would be like happy birthday or how's your day going or good morning, just because you wanted some interaction with someone
Right.
outside of your home because you're talking to the walls. Um, so it just continued to just communication just like every day. But it was a little hard because even though we were in the Atlanta area and lived probably 10 minutes down the road, it was not easy to just say come over.
Right.
We were so scared.
Right.
So just getting to know someone over the telephone, FaceTime, and just text messages for like 60, 90 days in the first time you've seen each other, it was like we knew each other forever.
Right.
So when I look at it now, it's like the first time we met was maybe like in May, the weekend after Mother's Day. And now we're going on, it'll be a year, August 28th.
Okay.
So I feel like it's going good. Just learning, we're still learning each other. But at the same time, it was kind of like I got to know you before we actually met.
Right.
Just
like any other relationship.
It's kind of like, oh, come here. So we're really affectionate people.
Right.
We like to love. I think that's one thing about our community. We like to love. We like to give love, and we like to receive love.
Right.
And be loved.
That's
right.
I guess misjudged from others.
Right. Right. Because everybody does. I mean, everybody, relationships start like that. With everyone, it's a learning curve. You get to know the person. Just like you said, it's difficult. I know in the Atlanta area, I mean, doesn't matter who you are. The dating scene is just like, you roll the dice. You hope that the person doesn't live with their parents, and that they're doing their own thing. Yeah, so it's not anything that's unusual, but I mean, just the dating scene in general, just valuing being able to go out, like you said, and to have that human touch, or to be able to just create those bonds and to be and to build that relationship. I know it can be a challenge. All right, Linky, that leaves you, my dear.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you, I guess them lesbians didn't care about no pandemic, baby, because we was out and about and it didn't even bother anybody. I can say for myself personally, I think I had a pandemic fling. Maybe that's what I could define it as, a pandemic. Okay. I was kind of in between relationships, broke up with, in a typical lesbian, broke up with somebody right before the pandemic. What I did notice, a lot of the groups, because I'm in like a whole lot of Facebook lesbian groups, a lot started doing Zoom meetups, games, 21 questions, all these other things. And so a lot of people met and connected like that. I met and connected with someone like that. Went to visit, did do the COVID test, like, okay, now I've been around you and coming back to my family. If we did have a child, we done messed everybody up. When we meet anyway, let's go get tested and see, okay, you negative, I'm negative, let's carry on. Okay. That type of thing. So that, Lord, that went on a lot. But I think typically, and for me, I had been in a lot of long distance relationships. Mm-hmm. So the online stuff, that didn't change. Okay. Actually, having someone I was in driving distance of to actually go see was the difference for me. Mm-hmm. But I think now that things have opened back up, people have been vaccinated, you're seeing a little bit more of the same. Mm-hmm. Meeting online first. Yeah, we're talking, having these long conversations. Okay, let's meet up somewhere. You've been well, I will ask, have you been vaccinated? Okay. I'm wearing my mask. I will have my mask on. Right. That's what we're doing. So I didn't really see much, for the exception of folks who may have liked to go out into the clubs and different venues. Right. And I'm an introvert, so I was okay. I know there are those who are extroverted that like that, they need that, being out and moving, that they found some difficulty. But like I said, some of the lesbians, child, they just out there. Going out, girl. Meet me at the Sizzler. The Sizzler ain't even open. That's all. Okay.
But it's like I said, I think the dynamics, I said all that just to say that the dynamics of relationships have changed in that as you are as people are dating and moving into more serious relationships, the options of talking about having children, like the Ricks talked about, and being able to change the family dynamic is something that's different because it's possible. Whereas they said it wasn't at one point, it wasn't something that was thought of. And now we're seeing so many people who are adopting. I have a group of friends who have they have a 6-year-old child. One of them was inseminated and was able to have a child. They chose which one of them was going to give birth, and they had a child, and that child is now 6-7 years old. And where at one point that wasn't a possibility, now it is. So it's a blessing when you can now have that option of being able to create a family unit and not be limited because of the fact that they're saying that you can't, or that there aren't possibilities for healthcare and things like that are coming down the pike. And so I think that we're moving in the right direction, but there's still a lot more that needs to be learned, a lot more that needs to to come to fruition. Now I know that we're getting close to the time to the end of our show, but I wanted to ask you all individually, what are some things that you are doing in the now since this pandemic hit? It's been hard on everybody, but what are some things that you've been doing to navigate in this space? Even as we're coming out of it, there have been some things that you may have learned during this pandemic. Okay, anyone want to start?
I would just say, me individual, I have learned to love myself more. I've learned to tell people I love them, spend more time with my family. I think that my family's been blessed that we haven't lost anyone during the pandemic, COVID-19. So anytime I can go home for Christmas or a holiday, I'm driving 4 hours to South Carolina because family is so essential now, and sometimes it's all you have.
That's right. That's right.
And now.
All right, Linky.
I can say, child, because my dating life had been such a disaster, it forced me to really look at myself, and I joined a shadow work group. And what I've been doing is learning more about myself, self-love, healing. We always talk about healing, even as a therapist, I'm helping everybody else.
Right.
And I've learned how to help myself, to know that I can't do this alone. I need someone to help keep me accountable and help walk with me through this whole process. So having a greater sense of self, really understanding who, what, when, where, how, and why within me has been truly helpful in the time that some of that downtime, that I've had has afforded me the opportunity to look inside,
Yeah, I mean, and just before I get to the Ricks, you make an excellent point, Linky, because people assume that because you understand who you are, or that you understand that there were differences at a young age, that automatically makes you a person that is clear on every other aspect of your life. And that's just just like everyone else. You still have, like you said, shadows, things that have happened in your past that you still have to address, things that you still go through. You still, have times of insecurity about other things, and that's not your entire existence. That once you say, okay, I feel that there's something different in me, that all of a sudden now you're completely cured of anything else that ever could happen in your life. You can never be more wrong about that. There are still things that you have to deal with on a daily basis, just like anyone else. And and that's what people, there's no definitive lines, and you're different, and this is your experience, and there's no one else's. You still experience some of the same things that everyone experiences every day. So I just want to make that point. It's a point, just like Ronaldo said, you don't take it on and off. It's not something that you wear. This is who he is. It's not a lifestyle, like you said, and I'm going to remember that, Ronaldo. It is not a lifestyle. It is who you are. Period. I don't put my black on and take my black off at night. Not the case at all. You know what I'm saying? We are who we are. And all we're trying to do is navigate in this life. Okay, Ricks, what are some things that you all are doing?
Well, I was just going to kind of say, it's kind of like what Rick just said. It's not our lifestyle. it's our life.
That's right.
This is our life. This is how we live. And yes, there are differences about us, but we're all basically the same. We want to love, we want to be loved,
That's right.
we want to be accepted, you know. So, but as far as living in the now, I feel very lucky to have Rick by my side. I don't know how I would have dealt with all this being alone, because I like to be social and I like to be close to friends and talk and get together. And I'm not real computer literate, so I call people on the phone.
Right.
And I love to talk to people on the phone.
He's old school.
But I want to get together and touch and hug, like some of you were talking
That's
about.
right.
So I feel very lucky. I think it's, if anything, maybe brought us closer, even though we haven't gotten to spend as much time together. It's been important time, and we're very thankful to have each other and not go through this alone.
Right.
But you also, he went home to hang out. I won't say take care. He went home to hang out with his mom for Thanksgiving to Christmas.
The most important thing for me, unfortunately, I lost my job. But my mother is about to be 95 years old.
Wow. Amen.
And I didn't see her. We didn't see our families for about 10, 11 months last year.
Which is rare.
And I've never gone but 3 or 4 months to not go home and spend time with my parents. And now my mom is alone. My sister's up there, but she still lives alone.
Right.
And of course, during the pandemic, she was really alone because nobody could come in and all of that. So it was really important for me to go home and spend quality time with her because she's getting older. Things are getting tougher.
Yeah.
And it was just very, very important and very meaningful for me to spend a lot more time with my mother back at the holiday for about a month and a half. And I just got back yesterday.
Yeah.
I was up for about 2.5 months.
Yeah. Wow.
Just being with her, doing for her, making life easier for her, and just trying to make her happy.
Yeah.
And like I was telling you, he gave his mom the gift of freedom and independence.
Yeah.
That if she needed something from the store, she could look at him and say, can you get me this and this and this, instead of waiting for somebody to come by. So he gave her that for, almost 4 months, here and there. So I was, he was with his mom. I was alone, but I was working the whole time.
Right.
So for me, I come home.
And he can fend for himself.
It's like, you'll be all right. TV dinner, cook. That's right.
I can cook. Ronaldo, I can cook. We can cook. They will come over and have a dinner with you or something.
Oh, there you go. Hey, look. Serious.
Yeah. But for me, it was, like I said, it was working. It was just doing stuff. I dog sat for people, made a little extra money. I think for us, the first time we went up to go visit our families was in October of 2020.
Yeah.
So 2020. And then it was, getting tested and then making sure, do we wear masks? And got to his mom's house. Is like, oh, take the mask off. Are you negative? Yes, we're fine. Okay, good. So it's that. Go to my mom. My mom's a cancer thriver. So that was, making sure, do we wear the mask? And I started wearing the mask. My mom's like, take the mask off. I just want to get a hug.
Right.
So my parents still, even though you're not supposed to hug we broke the rules. When I drove him back up at Thursday in Thanksgiving, Thursday, November of 2020, and then drove him back up and then drove back here. And then when we had Christmas with his family, we all sat in our little pods. And once again, his mom's 94. She's like, I don't care. I may not be here next year. We're having Christmas dinner with family.
Right.
She goes, we got to do that. So everybody sat in their own little pods. While we were talking, we had our masks on, except for the little kids.
Right.
But we had to do something, because what if this was his mom's last Christmas? What if it was? We don't want to feel like we missed out. We did not do, we listened to Dr. Fauci to a point. But we wanted to still be a family and be that close-knit family. We went home to my family also. And just the same thing, we grew up 3 hours apart from each other. So it's very easy to do both families at the holidays.
Right.
I'm with his family until the 26th. And then the 26th, we drive up to my family, which is just 3 hours up in Westchester County.
Right.
And then I got home for Passover. I've been commuting back and forth to New York every 6 weeks.
Wow.
So it's been just to go home and see the family and come back. And then we are actually taking off to go back up for another 2 weeks to visit the family again. He drove back so he could just drive back with me.
Yeah, it's
I
important.
guess I would say, or we would both say, that the pandemic really emphasized for us how important our families are to us. They always have been, but it's been a challenging time, and we've just made the most of our time with our families.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, my mom's a cancer thriver. She's in remission, but you never know.
Right. You're good.
Like, oh, guess what? It's back. Or, oh, guess what? She's got multiple myeloma, which means it's still in her body, but it's under 5%. So they call that remission or something like that.
Right.
So I just want to be there. I don't want to have, as I tell him, I don't want either one of us to have regrets about anything.
That's right. You know why? I was going to say that, you know, and it's huge that you say that, because when we talk about it, you know, we don't know. We all don't know how long we're going to be here. This pandemic has taught us that we don't know the day or the hour, you know, when our life may be taken from us, the life of a loved one may be taken from us. And now, you know, because this pandemic has not, you know, discriminated against us due to race or age or anything, that now it's more important that we keep those ties together. And I say all that also to say that even as a community, as a people, you would think that this pandemic would have pulled us all together and not cause any type of divide, because of the fact that you know, our lives can be lost in a moment's notice. So why are we not seeking to pull together, to understand one another, to love on each other, to support and encourage each other, and not cause any divides? Because, like I said, we don't know how long we're to be here. And so it's important that not only that we reach out to our families, but that we reach out to each other, and, you know, and to see the value and the worth and who we are as individuals and what we bring to our communities, to our world, you know, so that way we're doing things that are going to bring us all to a space of peace. You know, I always say that, you know, I'm looking to always seek for us to be able to cope. And that's the acronym for create our peaceful existence. How can we go about coping as a society? You know, and I know that we've just touched the surface, we just barely scratched the surface on pride and on all the things that we're doing, but we got an opportunity to talk about just the things that are going on in our lives on a regular basis. That make us human. And that's what's important, you know? So I hope that we'll have an opportunity to continue the conversation, to continue to talk about things that are going on around us, that we're aware, and that we have an openness and the willingness to learn what's happening around us, and not to make any judgments, but to come to a space of understanding. So before we wrap things up, I just want to know if anybody else has any last minute things that they would like to leave with our listeners, any parting words that you like to leave with our listeners before we go.
Peace and love.
I didn't hear you, Ronaldo. I'm sorry.
Just be you.
Be you. Be you. And I know Rick said peace and love. That's it. It's all about love.
And I say be open. If you have a friend or loved one that's in the community, be open, be an ally, you know, and educate. I think education is key.
Education is key. Okay, there's nothing like that. Well, I'd like to thank you all for joining us. Thank you for being here. Thank you for taking time out. A quick shout out again to Rick. It is his birthday, and I thank him emphatically for being here. I love you with my whole heart. We're gonna get together. Okay, we're gonna get together soon. You know, hey, there's something with an umbrella and it got my name on it. So we're gonna get together and celebrate. But I appreciate you taking time out. You guys have a safe trip back home, seeing your families. And like they said, love on each other. Let's love on each other. Okay, let's do what we can to you know, continue to grow and to continue to educate and to continue to lift each other up, because that's what it's all about. Okay, and again, I say thank you to each and every one of you, and that will do it for this edition of the How Now podcast. And until I see you all the next time, we say peace. Peace. Peace.